Hey y'all, and welcome to Culture Cult, where we are one podcast with 197 countries to explore travel, stories, and history from. I'm your host, Marie, and this episode we're diving into a country. So each season we feature different countries to highlight, whether it be randomly spinning on the globe, fan choice, or featuring a local from a certain country and hearing their perspective. You can have a say in the next country featured by following our Instagram at culturecultshow. Also, remember to comment, rate, and subscribe to the show on whatever platform you're listening on. Cheers and enjoy! Hey y'all, we're back. Last week we covered the European stories of when they came to Tahiti for the first time, the famous story of the HMS Bounty, and now the strange island of Pitcairn in French Polynesia. And to end the series of French Polynesia, today we have a fully loaded episode. We're going to cover the importance of Tahitian tattoos. And then the story of today is a really awesome story of when an islander left the paradise of Tahiti, jumped ship with famous Captain James Cook to London to deliver King George III a message. It's not a well-known story. I don't know how I stumbled upon it. I'm so excited to talk about it. It's definitely about two different worlds colliding. And if you haven't listened to the first episode, I would say go back and listen to that one because somehow in a really cool way, those stories are intertwined. So before we get onto all that, let's invite Grace, my cousin Grace, or Gravy as I call her, back on the episode for Polynesia.
Yay! I'm back.
She's back and we're drinking.
I'm already excited.
Yes.
I've already started drinking. We're doing great.
Yes.
It's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday.
And yeah, so we got like our little drink on. I got a little tropical drink in my hand, but we definitely, I feel like on our last episode of Polynesia, I think we both, if there's any lesson we learned, I think we both learned we would never live on a boat in the middle of the ocean and travel like the Polynesians did.
I would go there, but not via their way.
Yes. So this episode is a fully loaded episode. So I want to get right into it. And I want to talk about tattoos. First of all, do you got any?
No.
Oh, no. Absolutely not. Because you're a good girl. Okay. Well, I do. I have one tattoo. I got it in Thailand. I was done by the ancient bamboo practice. It was pretty painful.
Rope thing or
yes. Yeah, it was like through a bamboo stick. It was kind of painful, but I liked it. But so originally tattoos came from Polynesia and they weren't called tattoos. They're called tataus. So it was Tatau. And when sailors came over from Europe and stuff, they would just get tatted there. And then they would come back to Europe with these tattoos and we were like, whoa, what is that? And they're like, it's a tattoo, but it's called a tatau.
So like, this is actually the origin of
literally the origin. And I'm sure there's other places where tattoos are being done in the world, but this is where we get the word tattoo from because European sailors were making contact with the Polynesians and they're getting Polynesian tattoos, tataus on them. And they would come back and they would just tattoo each other. And they would come back to Europe with all these like tats on them. And they're like, where'd you get that done? They're like, oh, it's a tattoo.
I feel like that'd be such a weird thing. Like, you know, this being a new idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, like that's some cool art you have on your arm. Like, can you color on me? And they're like, yeah, needle. Like, what?
Oh yeah. So how it's done, I want to tell you the process of it. How they do it is kind of painful. So I got this quote from Wikipedia. So, you know, it's totally 100% worthwhile. So Wikipedia says that the tattoo master dips his cutting tools into black ink made from soot from burnt candle nut shells and it punctures the design into the skin. The master uses a small mallet to repeatedly tap a short-handed instrument. The process can take days and they usually have like parties and stuff after because that's how extensive the tattoos are. But that's what the word tattoo comes. It comes from the tapping of the mallet hitting the skin. So it's like that's the sound that they were hearing.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. And so
all these fun facts.
I know. So I just got my tattoo because like I was traveling and I was like, oh, how fun. And kind of most people, you know, they just kind of get it for fun. But in Polynesia, it's very important. Essentially, they're telling their personal and family histories on their bodies and their grandmother's tattoos and putting it on them. It's a generational thing. You're telling your family's story on your body. So it's not just like I like peace, love, happiness tattoo, you know, whatever people get. It's also to mark adulthood. So with men, it's called a P-E-A. Pia? Okay. Well,
You're asking the wrong gal.
Yeah, I don't know. So the PIA is an important rite of passage, and it grants men an adulthood status. And for women, they have the malu, and they usually have it on their legs. I've noticed when I've been watching documentaries on it, the malu is mainly on women's like thighs, and it brings a lot of privileges. They can serve ceremonial drinks, collect gifts at funerals. They also use it to mark big events in their life, like getting married and stuff like that. But essentially, they're saying how other cultures, we have like books and plays and all this stuff that talks about our culture that we can like look back onto. Well, for them, it's all on their skin. That's the best way that they can tell their history, is to just go ahead and put it on their skin. And then you do that. Whatever your grandma had, you put it on you. So it's all generational.
That's really cool.
I know, right? I think it's beautiful. It's the most permanent way to tell a story, but of course, the Europeans came and the Christian missionaries came, and they were like, no, what are you doing? These tattoos are so unchristian. Oh my God, y'all are partying after. They hated the parties. They hated the tattoos. They said they were going to go to hell. Just the ultimate party poopers. Missionaries
Just did not know how to have a good time.
Well, my thing is, you decided to come here. You didn't have to come to our island. You can't. That's like me entering your home, saying everything you do is wrong. You're going to go to hell for it. I would just be like, well, why'd you come? Like, why are you in my house? Like, I don't know. like why you did not have to come here. So
leave.
Literally just leave. So they like arrived and they saw these tattoos and all these fun parties, and they were like, absolutely not. So the tattoos started to kind of go just extinct. But now that's a huge renaissance around like Samoans and Polynesian cultures. There's tatau festivals. People are getting these tataus to reconnect with their ancestors, and they're even mixing it with Christian doctrines. So it just definitely lead to the discussion of like, should you, because a lot of people like Polynesian tattoos. Like they'll get them even though they're not Polynesian. And it's like, should you be getting those? Because it kind of brings like, now that I'm learning more about it, it actually has to do with their history. It's not just like cool designs, and it has to do with the land and the ocean and all that. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think it's okay for other people to get a cultural tattoo? Because if you're admiring it? Yeah, that's the word. Yeah. Or do you think it should just stay within that culture?
That's such a tough question. I know. I'm qualified to answer that. I'm just now learning all of this like history. It's a tough question.
Yeah. I mean, I personally, I don't know. I think it talks about like the intention. Like, let's say like, what if you went to Polynesia and you met people and they wanted to give you a tattoo? Like, I feel like that's cool.
That's cool.
Versus like, oh, it's cute.
Yeah. Maybe, have some knowledge about what it is, what it means.
Yeah.
Not just, a cool design. Like,
yeah, especially since they weren't allowed to have these tattoos for so long, so it really means a lot to them. And I'm going to drop a link in the show notes to this YouTube channel I found. It's called Tuila Talks. It's like Tuila, Tuila Talks. And it's just these Polynesians. They're just sitting around a table kind of discussing this, because some people are like, yeah, it's cool. And some people are like, no, you really shouldn't be doing that. So it's kind of a cool perspective to hear on it. But
yeah, people are definitely more qualified to
about
it than I am.
I know. So. I don't know any Polynesians, so I'm like, I'm just gonna have my cousin on it. So I mean, honestly, I wish I could cover a lot of things about Polynesia, because there's so much, like so many different kinds of dances, mythologies, food. It was kind of intimidating to cover, but I definitely implore y'all to watch some stuff on it. But I did want to get into our crazy story today that I found on a man named Mai. He's also kind of known as Prince Mai in Europe. And I really want to get into his story. But before we do, I want to feature a trailer from the Winging It Travel Podcast with James Hammond. If you are craving another travel podcast, it's super awesome. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Winging It Travel Podcast. This is a travel podcast where we're having conversations with new guests every Monday. This is an anecdotal, informative podcast for backpackers, travellers, or anyone who's interested in travel. It's a casual style where there'll be stories to tell, tips to share, and experiences to inspire. My name is James Hammond. I've travelled to 50 countries, done 3 work visas, and planning to do a big worldwide trip later this year. I've met so many people on my travels in the last 10 years that I just have to get them on this podcast to get their stories on record and provide some tips for you for your trip. There'll be so much travel content coming your way in the next coming weeks, months and years that'll inspire you to book that trip that you've always wanted. Stay tuned for my weekly episode. Thanks.
Okay, So I'm so excited for this story today of this man named Mai. I love telling stories that are not really found or told because I don't want people to disappear into history and stuff. And I mean, this guy, it's like, there's like two articles I really based it off of Smithsonian and this article called theconversation.org. That's it. That's all I got. So
Sweet.
Yeah. There's really not much on this guy, but he's such a cool story. So I'll go ahead and like send you the picture of him real quick. Okay, I'm showing Gravy the picture of Mai so she can see what he looks like. And it's on, and for y'all, he's going to be on the art for this episode if you're on Spotify. And if you're on Instagram, I'll have posted his picture. That's Mai. You see him? And he's kind of cute, for like 1700s. Yeah, I think he's pretty fine personally. But so this portrait's been done by painter Joshua Reynolds, who's just dressed and posed him in like a very royal fashion. You would think this guy's a prince or royalty, or at least from wealth, but he's not. And he's not even from Europe. His name is Mai. He's from a small, faraway island in Polynesia called Raiatea. It's a ragged volcanic island about 130 miles northwest of Tahiti. So Raiatea is considered the cradle of Polynesia's extraordinary seafaring culture. So this is one of the first islands that we talked about in that last episode of people taking that huge voyage from the mainland of Asia. This is one of the first islands they landed on. So this is a really, really, really ancient island. And it's also very, very spiritual. So what's kind of crazy is one of the rarest flowers in the world grows here. It can't grow in any other environment once it's taken off or replanted anywhere on the island. It grows on the side of the mountain called Mount Timihani. It's called, here we go, Tiara Apatahi. So the flower only has 4 petals. They try to replant it in other islands that are volcanic. Everywhere else in the world, the flower does not work. It does not grow. It does not thrive.
Magic.
Yeah, magic flower.
Magic flower.
Yeah. So Mai grew up in a very beautiful, special place. He definitely wasn't a prince there. He was a commoner. His family did own some land, but it seemed like he just had the best childhood growing up there. But one day in 1763, invaders from the neighboring island of Pora Pora, which we learned from last episode is not Bora Bora. It's Pora Pora because there's no B in the Tahitian alphabet. So invaders from the neighboring island of Pora Pora under the famous chief Puni came with people. And there was war for 3 years of him trying to conquer Mai's homeland. So they did Mai so dirty. They killed his dad. They took his land. They demolished all the temples and they enslaved everyone.
No.
Yeah. So, I mean, truly horrifying stuff for him to experience. Like, I'm sure he was probably like 8, 9, 10. I don't know. But somehow Mai escaped from enslavement and he fled to Tahiti, the island that everyone's very like familiar with, as a refugee. But as you can imagine, like he's pissed. These people took everything from him. If anyone did survive, they're enslaved now. Like he has no one. He doesn't have a home. He has no family. He's just a refugee in Tahiti. He's made his determination in life to return to Raiatea, his homeland, and to bring vengeance on the people of Pora Pora. So if this was one of those hero movies, this is his turning point. He wants to do anything in his power to get his homeland back. So after all that, it still was not peaceful for him. The Europeans came. The English navigator, Samuel Wallis, is the first European to stumble upon Tahiti, where he just came up and immediately cleared it for Britain and King George III. He was like, I'm here, we're queer, and this is for England. Quote. No, but like literally that mindset of just arriving somewhere and just declaring it and being like, this is for King George. It's like, who's King George? Who are y'all?
Well, also, like, they probably didn't speak the same language.
Literally not. He just made an announcement.
Like King George, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what? No, it's not. We don't know what you're saying.
Yeah. So like already like, exactly. So when that didn't work, Wallace just started immediately shooting at all the Polynesians standing on the beach.
Probably because they didn't speak English.
Literally.
Like, why aren't they giving me my land?
Oh my God. So he just like, his second thought was, okay, shoot. So he just started shooting upon everyone, including Mai, who was standing in the crowd of people looking upon these like strangers, shouting things at them. Of course, they're confused. So he actually gets hit by one of the, I guess like something like a shard from a bullet or a cannon, something, huge piece of metal slices through him. And he actually has a permanent scar from this instance. And it's kind of crazy because that scar is a physical representation of like the first contact between the Polynesians and the Europeans, you know? He just keeps living these like historical events. And I'm not sure if he even wants to. I feel like he just wants to go home. But so at this point, yeah, the paradise isn't a secret anymore. But what was interesting to him is that he had never seen such powerful weapons before this time period. Like he's never seen cannons before. He's definitely never seen guns. He's not just been shot by a gun.
I mean, imagine how terrifying that would be.
It has to be like aliens or something coming at you.
Yeah, I think that's what I would think. Like they're not speaking our language, aliens.
Literally.
Like, they have like weird weapons that we've never seen before. Straight up aliens.
They have something that's going to bust out of some like a tube and then blow up a whole space of area. And you just been hit by one. So you realize how powerful it is. This poor dude, he's like wrong place, wrong time. I feel like that's like,
yeah.
what's been happening to him. But he's thinking, okay, these guys, I just got hit by this weapon. I know how deadly this is, how powerful this is. This is how I'm going to get my land back. So now I'll jump ahead. The Europeans have been there for a second. He's still on Tahiti. He's about 20 years old. And in 1773, famous Captain James Cook arrives to Tahiti. Mai sees this as a huge opportunity. He's like, I've got to go to England and I want to get England involved to get my island back. So Mai gets in contact with the crew and he begs them, like hands and knees, like, can I please get on your ship? And they're like, sure. Like, you want to
like, we can all use another hand, you know?
Yeah. They're probably confused why he wants to leave this place. You know, as we learned in the last episode, like people like died to live there. They risked everything to live there. And now we have someone from the island who's dying to go to England, but for a different purpose, though. He was going to England to spread a message to King George. But I mean, imagine how weird this must be for him. Like he doesn't speak the same language. He's leaving everything he knows, like a beautiful island, and he's about to just go. He's just going to head off into somewhere completely different.
On those boats.
I'm sure like 2 days in, he's like, ew.
Like,
turn around.
Plus, like, the water doesn't look that beautiful.
Once you leave, I know. He probably thinks the whole world is that beautiful. He has no idea.
And tough luck when he gets to England.
Literally. But on the boat, he actually has a good time. Like, this is not like HMS Bounty vibes. Like, no. This is actually good vibes on the ship. Apparently, he makes good money there, or he makes money. He makes jokes a lot. He cooks for the crew. People like him a lot. So his name's Mai, but they start calling him Omai or Jack. So similar.
Similar.
I feel like Jack was not necessary. Mai is already easy to say.
Like, that's not a difficult name.
No. They're like, we're going to call you Jack. He's like, what? I have a 1-syllable name. So he's now known as Omai, where they actually added a syllable, or Jack. But Jack has a good time on these boats. So on October 1773, the boat arrives to England. Omai is now the very first Polynesian to make that voyage and step foot in England. And boy, I bet that was a shock to see London in the 1700s versus like your beautiful islands you're back from, like
a big city. It's super crowded.
Nasty.
It's gray. There's a lot of buildings. There's no mountains.
No mountains.
No rain.
No rare flower.
Yeah, no rare flowers. He's like, what's going on?
I cannot imagine anywhere so different. You're right. It's just a city life. So it's like filthy and there's just chaos everywhere. Like no one knows each other. The architecture alone must be insane. If you've ever even been to London, like I find it shocking. And I've been to New York and all these other places that have architecture. Like I find London shocking. I can't imagine what that must like be like for him. So it really couldn't be more opposite. But so when he gets there, Mai was given to the care of Joseph Banks, a botanist. Now Joseph Banks goes to Polynesia a lot. He loves Polynesia. So it's perfect for him to have someone from that land because he's fascinated by cultures that he thinks are unspoiled by Europeans. And he's always writing about and wondering if all men are evil or if men who live closer to nature are lesser evil, which I think is a good question. It's a fair question. And so he is really fascinated by the Polynesians and by but this is not like an abnormal thing. At this time period, they're discovering all these new places and they're bringing people back from Asia, from Africa, from the Americas to see if they could acclimate into European life and European standards. A good example of that is Pocahontas, who came to London in 1616. So about 100 years before I got there. Think about this time period, because it might sound like a little bit, they don't have YouTube, they don't have TV, they don't have fast connection to anything. So if you hear through the grapevine what Polynesia sounds like, you're like, I'm so curious. It's so different from what I live in. And then you get to meet someone from there. That could be your once in a lifetime situation.
That's true. Because let me tell you, I wouldn't be getting on a boat.
No, I wouldn't either. I'm not. But so the people in England are just mind blown by these people they're bringing back from these new worlds. And so from here, Mai gets My Fair Lady. You ever seen that movie?
Yeah.
Okay. So like My Fair Lady, rich English guy takes uncivilized quote woman off the street and just makes her like a beauty and puts her into civilization. And the movie's kind of misogynistic, but it's really good. Like I watched it recently and I was like, good God, this guy is an asshole. But it's a really good movie. He gets My Fair Lady by Joseph Banks in this situation. Joseph Banks makes him, quote, civilized because he's going to meet the king of freaking England. The most powerful person probably at this time period. Insane. So Joseph has to teach him proper English. He has to teach him how to bow. He gets him fresh tailored clothes. And by the end of this, he looks like a prince. He definitely can't speak any English at all, but he fits the part. So at this point, like this is Mai's moment. He's about to meet the King of England after like this is his only chance really to convince him to get like arms and support to fight against the people of Pora Pora. It's a huge moment for him. So when he met him, he just poured his heart out, just telling him his story. And King George just heard Mai out, but he's definitely interested in taking over all of the Polynesian islands for British interest. So French and the Spanish don't take it over and they want to exploit Mai's homeland. But he's definitely not interested in funding an island war. So he just kind of tells Mai he'll entertain the idea and help Mai back to his home country on the next expedition out. So, I mean, at this point, imagine how he's feeling. Like he just came all this way. No one around him is anything like him. He just met the only chance he ever had was with this guy, King George. And King George just kind of dismissed him. And now he's just stuck in this random part of the world. So, I mean, like, how would you be feeling? You feel like at this point?
I mean, it would definitely not be easy, especially, it's a completely different environment. It's a different language. It's not easy to get back home. Like the one reason that you're there didn't work out. So, I'd probably be pretty helpless.
Yeah. He has no family. His whole life is about vengeance. And now he doesn't have a plan for it. But he's still in England. And he's not feeling England, but England loves him. Loves him. He's getting better English. He's picking up how to be more English. He gets the chance of a lifetime. He's taken on a grand tour of all the estates, like all the way to Scotland, and they take him to all the manors, all the concerts, all the balls. He saw how to hunt. He saw how to ride a horse.
I will say Scotland was probably cool.
Yeah, but he loves Scotland.
I haven't been to Scotland. Scotland's absolutely stunning. I mean, completely different than Polynesia, I'm sure, or like island life.
Yeah,
but in a completely different way. It's beautiful.
It is.
So it's like, I haven't really explored the English countryside that much, but I imagine it's also beautiful. And so I'm sure he was probably like, wow.
I think he liked this part a lot. I think like, obviously he's being wined and dined by the entire English royalty. Just because he's Polynesian. They're obsessed with him. They love him. It's like Princess Diaries or something, or My Fair Lady. It's just something, he's getting put into a completely different world. They were swept by his charisma and his charm. And it just proved to them that like, in their eyes, that natives can live like the European way. They were convinced he was a prince in Tahiti. They couldn't put the idea around that he would be a commoner. Joseph Banks, his caretaker, says in a letter to his sister, he succeeds most prodigiously. He wrote to his sister, so much national politeness I've never saw in a man. Wherever he goes, he makes friends and has not, I believe, made one foe. People were writing and talking about him everywhere, but some people believed that it wasn't doing Mai any justice. One clergyman from Scotland said, I do not find any steps have been taken towards giving him any useful knowledge. He believes that when Mai goes back to Tahiti, people are not going to believe anything he says. And so he says, this poor fellow, Omai, they have taught him nothing, and he will only pass for a consummate liar when he returns. For how can he make them believe half the things he'll tell him? So some people are like, this isn't really healthy. So Mai is definitely enjoying himself, but after a while, he's starting to become really weary of his homeland. Cause like, I'm trying to think of like, when's the last time you felt like homesick? Even though he was getting like wined and dined by all of England, the weather was just so different. And on whenever it was dark and gloomy, people would say they would hear him crying outside, like walking around the city at night, just crying, which is so sad. And it's filth. And he just didn't understand all the poverty that he saw. So on July 1776, King George III did keep one promise and put him back on the boat with James Cook to go back to Polynesia. But with no army, no arms to regain his homeland. And Captain James Cook also made promises of his own because Mai helped with negotiations with other Pacific Islanders while they were sailing. And Captain James Cook said like, oh, well, I'll give you a bunch of livestock and I'll help you with your little island problem. He sold all the livestock and he didn't even drop off Mai anywhere close to his homeland. He dropped him off on this island like called Huaihene. And it's like 120 miles from Tahiti, which is even further from his original island. Apparently, yeah, they actually had a very emotional farewell because like, nothing really worked out for him, but he became really attached to the British people. I mean, essentially, like that's been his friend's family in a really weird way. And he settled on the island of Hawaii. That Scottish guy's right. He struggled there once he got there because all the islanders were dismayed by him and they did not believe his stories. He had all this like cool stuff he brought back with him, but they were just like, what is all this? They have no context to anything that he saw. So he felt pretty unrooted. And the Smithsonian actually made a really good connection in their article that he's very similar to that rare flower that we're talking about in the island. The minute you uproot it, it can't thrive. And that's what happened. He got uprooted and he tried other places. He tried everything to get back to that island, but he was uprooted and his spirit is attached to that island. Something got pulled from him, you know? And it's a sad story, but at the same time, I feel like he also lives this kind of life that no one gets to experience. Imagine just like Kate Middleton one day, she's like, Grace, I'm going to show you the time of your life. And you just get to go to all the most royal parties, go up and down England, go to balls and concerts. Everyone thinks you're hot. Like he got the coolest experience. He didn't accomplish his goal, which sucks.
I mean, yeah, I think in a lot of ways, he kind of was able to experience a very interesting life. I think it kind of sucks at the same time, you know, that he didn't get to reach his goals, I guess, and he didn't get to ever go home.
He never got to go back to his island.
It's really sad to me, honestly. I think he took advantage, like in a good way. I think he was able to take his situation and use it to his advantage. And then, you know, he must have just been like a cool dude. And
I know.
Was able to kind of, I don't want to say like get away with it, but like, you know, prosper, I guess, maybe.
Yeah.
And experience the whole different kind of, which I bet was super rare.
Yeah. Even just to be wealthy and live that kind of lifestyle is rare. Yeah. He couldn't accomplish what he wanted to accomplish. And he ended up just dying on the island, I think from a disease a couple of years later from that. But yeah, just people on the island were like, who do you think you are? What is this England place? Why do you have all these weird things? What are you talking about that you were a royal, treated like a royal there? He had 2 feet in 2 parts of the world. And that's exactly what the Scottish man was saying, that it's not helpful always to bring back these native people because they're just kind of stuck between 2 places. But I don't know. For me, I think that he had a really cool experience.
Yeah. I'm also like, I'm surprised that this story isn't as well known.
Right? I think it'd be an awesome movie to watch him like when he first arrives in England, you know, like I would love to see like a movie about all the little intricacies. Like, you know, how British people are just very into tradition and social status. And there's a lot of social things you have to know to fit into, especially old England. And I would love to watch him acclimate, you know?
Yeah. It just surprises me. This wouldn't be so like a little more well-known just because he was on a ship with James Cook.
Mm-hmm. And William Bligh, all these people.
All these like, you know, well-known people. He met the king, blah, blah, blah. Like
first Polynesian to come to England.
Yeah.
It just seems like a cool guy. I just wanted to talk about him. I mean, if you ever go to that island, Raiatea, It's even more special if you get to go there. Because like when you see that flower, it can remind you of like how he is that flower that he needs to be in his roots. He needs to be on that island in that specific place for him to thrive. And I really want to go. I want to see that flower. It's pretty rare. It's only on that side of that mountain. So if you ever go to that island, definitely go find that flower and think of Mai. But I did want to tell you how this story was just weirdly connected with our last episode. So Captain Bligh of the HMS Bounty and at the famous mutiny that he had was on the ship with James Cook. I feel like this whole time too, because so Bligh and Cook went to Hawaii after Polynesia, after dropping off Mai. I feel like they were literally all on the same ship, because how would he get to Hawaii without leaving from England with James Cook? And Mai was on that ship. So I'm speculating, but no matter what, Captain Bligh, the one we talked about last one, went on a trip after Polynesia to Hawaii with James Cook. And that's where James Cook met his demise. He has a really bad death. So I want to talk about his death real quick. So this trip to Hawaii was famous. I think it's the first contact of colonizers to Hawaii. And it's James Cook. And this is after he just went to Polynesia. He met Mai, all this stuff. And so it's a story just told over and over. Europeans just exploiting people. The Native Americans are like, hey, how are you? Like they were friendly to them. They actually thought James Cook and him were like gods when they came because of the weapons. But then I think what happened is one of them on the ship got sick and died. And then they were like, you're not immortal at all. Who are you people?
Wait a damn minute.
Wait, is he coughing? So that's one part of the story. The people say that they thought they were gods. And that, one guy got sick and died. And they were like, okay, who are y'all? Why are y'all here? And then they kind of figured out they were using them and that they're going to keep bringing more people here. So obviously they got pissed off and they were like, you need to go. You need to leave. And so they forced them to leave. But on their journey out, they're having some issues with their boat. Their whole mast broke. They can't keep going. They're going to die. So they have to take a choice. Do we just keep sailing this broken mast into the Pacific Ocean, or do we turn back to Hawaii where they literally hate us? They turned around. How awkward is that? Hey guys. Sorry. Yes, we're not gods.
We can't even freaking sail our boat.
They're coming back with like a rickety ass ship. Like the mast is like sloshing through the water. So they get there and the Hawaiians just straight up start like, stealing from them. They take they said a cutter vessel. It's a smaller boat. So James Cook is like, ugh. So he has to go back onto the island and try to negotiate with the chief on like, yo, give us our boat back. But at this point, the Hawaiians are like, no, you've been using us. So there's bad tension on the island, very bad tension. I don't know what happened from here, but one of the Europeans just straight up shot one of the Hawaiian chiefs. What do you think happens? All the Hawaiians just completely mob James Cook and their crew. They're pushing them back into the water. It's just like a bloodbath. Everyone's fighting each other. Apparently, William Bligh is one of the first people to shoot the Hawaiians. So he might have caused all this. I don't know. And they ended up just straight up murdering James Cook. Apparently, he was stabbed in the neck.
Ow.
So then they just retaliated hard against the Hawaiians. They killed 30 of them. So that didn't go well at all. And I can't help but think if Mai hadn't just gone back to his island, he was dropped off onto a random island. If he hadn't just gone back there and if he had just stayed on these ships with James Cook and maybe help keep negotiating with the Pacific Islanders and like showing James Cook, these are not people to exploit. These people are just like me. Because they had a pretty good bond until he betrayed him. I don't know. I just makes me wonder if maybe this all could have not happened. All these people wouldn't have died if maybe if Mai had just been the ambassador in a way to Native people of Polynesian descent, Yeah. I don't know. But this James Cook's death is pretty controversial in art history because people recorded it very differently. And so a lot of people painted it as the Hawaiians brutally murdering James Cook and he's like innocently falling to the ground and everyone's just being murdered and the Hawaiians are savages. But then the people who were there.
So I can look up this
Yes, look up James Cook death, Hawaii. And then some of them are painted from accounts of people who were there who show the British firing upon the Hawaiians and the first chief laying on the ground being murdered. So some people tell the first part of the story, and some painters just tell the end of the story, which is James Cook being murdered.
Some of these look familiar.
Yeah. Pretty famous paintings, but it kind of didn't help with the fact of British people thinking like Hawaiians are savages and all this stuff. But that's what's interesting. The British loved Mai. They loved Mai. And Mai is just like the Hawaiians, you know? So I don't know. If you look at the paintings, you can just definitely see two different stories. And that's what happens. And James Cook, he didn't learn his lesson about exploiting other people. And he got murdered.
He done got.
He got stabbed in the neck. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like Mai's also a lesson of like, get to know people, take time to understand each other. Don't just immediately attack.
Yeah.
When you see another culture, you know?
Yeah.
But these are like a huge couple episodes, but I just thought it was kind of crazy how Captain Bligh, I started looking at Captain Bligh first. Then I looked into Cook and then I found Mai. And then I realized they all have been circulating around each other in a weird way.
Yeah. That connection is kind of wild, actually.
It's weird. I wasn't trying to look at all three of these stories. It just kind of happened. What do you think? What's been your favorite things about these stories?
My favorite things? Okay, well, first of all, I do love that there's a rare flower.
Yes.
I love that. I think it's super cool that this is somehow all connected,
right?
Even though it ended up in tragedy, obviously, but still pretty wild. I still think it's sad that Mai didn't get to, go back to his original island. But I do think it's again, I'll say, I'm surprised that his story isn't more well known. I really am.
Yeah, there's literally two articles. I had two articles to go off of. Smithsonian and it's like conversation.com, which pretty much was the same thing that the Smithsonian was saying.
That's wild to me.
I mean, I guess this happened with a lot of people. A lot of people were taken from the New World and shown off in England. But people just, his personality is just so charismatic. People just like, whoa, who is this dude? So I really loved learning about just the first contact. You have to remember the Polynesian Islands were completely remote, untouched for like about 1 million years. And then the Polynesians came from Asia about 4,000 years ago. So beginning of humanity. So for like 3,000 years, they're just living, chilling, obviously fighting within each other. Like you see poor people came and attacked people from Mai's Island, but essentially they're remote, nothing. And I'm just fascinated by these first moments of contact, between the Europeans and these people who were living in the most remote parts of the world. But I'm going to say my sources for the day. So for the story, I told you conversation.com and the Smithsonian. For James Cook's story, history.com, hawaiianhistory.org. And then definitely check out the show notes if you want to learn more about Polynesian tattoos. And definitely that really fun conversation about Polynesian tattoos between the Polynesians discussing like, should you get a Polynesian tattoo if you're not Polynesian? But yeah, it just says, I feel like I really want to go to Polynesia now. Like it looks so beautiful. Yeah. And there's just places to go see and do besides all the resorts, y'all. Like don't just do that. There's so much history here. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up. This is our last episode of the season, actually. This is the last country and you're the last guest.
I'm in 3 episodes of this season?
Yeah, you are.
My first appearance on this show.
You're in the very beginning of the season and you're at the last of the season. So wrap up season 2. I hope y'all love learning about Zimbabwe, El Salvador, Romania, and now Polynesia. If y'all share your favorite episode with someone if you liked it and leave a review if you like this season a lot. Also for the future, me posting a questionnaire on Instagram to tell me how you think the podcast would be even better for you next season. So the Instagram is at culturecultshow. Also follow the Instagram because you can choose and have a voice on which countries you want to hear next for season 3. So, I mean, which countries would you want to hear for season 3? Because I think you picked Romania. Which countries would you be interested for next season?
Madagascar.
That would be cool. Yeah. So essentially, think of some countries that y'all want to hear for next season. I'm saying thank you guys for listening and huge thanks to the cult members. So yeah, keep an eye out on Instagram for season 3. And if you're a cult member, check out the post talk episode. And yeah, cheers, y'all.